Jasmine Taylor watches in horror as the flight attendant carelessly tosses her designer bag into the trash. "We don't allow fakes on this aircraft," the woman sneers. Little does she know, this plane wasn't just booked for any passenger, it was chartered specifically for the 16-year-old prodigy. Before we dive into this shocking story, where are you watching from today? Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever witnessed or experienced discrimination in a place where you should have been welcomed. The way this story unfolds will leave you questioning everything about how we judge others based on appearance. The morning sun streamed through the worn curtains of their Harlem apartment as Jasmine Taylor stared at the email for the 5th time. She still couldn't believe it. Her algorithm had won. Not second place or honorable mention. First place in the National Youth STEM competition. "Dad! Dad! I won!" she screamed, running into the tiny kitchen where Darnell Taylor was preparing for his early morning shift at Manhattan Memorial Hospital. Darnell turned, his tired eyes lighting up at his daughter's excitement. "What? The big competition?" "Yes." Jasmine thrust her phone toward him. "Look. My clean energy algorithm beat out 2,000 other entries. Microvision wants to fly me to Silicon Valley to present to their board." Darnell Taylor set down his thermos of coffee and took the phone, his hands trembling slightly. As a hospital janitor working double shifts for the past 8 years since Jasmine's mother passed away, he'd sacrificed everything for his daughter's education. "Baby girl, I always knew you were a genius." Tears welled in his eyes as he pulled her into a tight hug, his hospital uniform smelling of industrial detergent. "Your mama would be so proud." 3 days later, another email arrived. This one from Dr. Alicia Washington, one of the few black female executives at Microvision Tech and the head of their renewable energy division. "They're chartering a private plane just for me?" Jasmine gasped, reading the message aloud to her father. "Dr. Washington wants to make sure you arrive in style," Darnell smiled, though his brow furrowed with concern. "That's a whole different world, Jasmine." "I know, Dad." Jasmine bit her lip. She'd grown up in a neighborhood where most families struggled to make ends meet. Her school had outdated textbooks and overcrowded classrooms. Despite her perfect grades, teachers had often overlooked her for advanced opportunities, until Mr. Jenkins, her computer science teacher, recognized her exceptional talent and encouraged her to enter the competition. The night before her departure, their small apartment filled with neighbors bringing dishes and well wishes. Mrs. Rodriguez from apartment 3B brought empanadas. The Thompson twins from across the hall had pooled their allowance to buy Jasmine a new professional blouse. Even Mr. Gaines, the grumpy super, showed up with a card signed by everyone in the building. "We took up a collection," said Mrs. Wilson, pressing an envelope into Jasmine's hand. Inside was $830. "I can't accept this," Jasmine protested. "Yes, you can," Mrs. Wilson insisted. "You need to look the part when you're showing those Silicon Valley types what Harlem brilliance looks like." The next morning, a package arrived by courier. Inside was a genuine Louis Vuitton laptop bag with a note from Dr. Washington: "Carry your brilliant mind in something worthy of it. See you in California. Dr. A." Jasmine ran her fingers over the supple leather, never having owned anything so expensive in her life. She carefully placed her laptop inside, along with the flash drive containing her presentation and the only complete version of her algorithm. "This is it, Dad," she whispered as they embraced at the door. "If they fund my project, we could move you out of that basement apartment, get you better doctors for your back." "Don't you worry about me," Darnell said firmly. "You just go show them what Jasmine Taylor is made of." As she climbed into the taxi, Jasmine thought about the 4 years of work that had gone into her algorithm. The nights spent coding while her father worked overnight shifts. The teachers who told her to be realistic about her goals. The college counselor who suggested community college instead of MIT. Every setback and every doubt had led to this moment. Dr. Washington had arranged everything perfectly, even hiring a driver to take Jasmine to the private terminal at JFK. Unfortunately, an emergency board meeting meant Dr. Washington couldn't accompany her on the flight, but she promised to meet Jasmine in California. "You've got this," she told Jasmine during their last phone call. "Just remember, you belong in that room just as much as anyone else." Little did Jasmine know how much those words would be tested in the next 24 hours. The private terminal at JFK Airport gleamed with polished marble floors and wall-to-wall windows overlooking the tarmac. Jasmine clutched her new bag nervously as she approached the check-in desk, acutely aware that her discount store clothes didn't match the designer outfits worn by the other travelers. "Excuse me, I think you're in the wrong place," said the receptionist without looking up. "Commercial flights are in the main terminal." "I'm Jasmine Taylor," she replied. "I'm supposed to board a chartered flight to San Francisco." The receptionist's eyebrows shot up as she checked her computer. "Oh. Yes. Microvision's flight." Her tone remained skeptical as she handed Jasmine a boarding pass. "Security is through those doors." While white passengers breezed through security with minimal inspection, Jasmine was pulled aside for random additional screening 3 separate times. Each officer seemed surprised by her private flight status, asking repeatedly who she was traveling with. "I'm traveling alone," Jasmine explained for the 3rd time, growing increasingly uncomfortable. "And who authorized this flight?" the security officer pressed. "Microvision Technology. I'm presenting my research to their board tomorrow." The officer exchanged glances with his colleague before reluctantly letting her through. By the time Jasmine reached the boarding gate, her confidence was shaken. She spotted a sleek white jet through the window with Apex Charter emblazoned on the side. A tall, slender flight attendant with perfectly coiffed blonde hair stood at the entrance, checking boarding passes. Her name tag read Heather Blackwell. "Boarding pass," Heather said curtly when Jasmine approached, not making eye contact. Jasmine handed over her pass. Heather scrutinized it, then looked Jasmine up and down with narrowed eyes. "This is a private charter. Are you sure you're on the right flight?" "Yes, I'm Jasmine Taylor. The flight is for me." Heather's lips pursed. "Wait here." She stepped away to confer with another crew member, speaking in hushed tones while glancing back at Jasmine. From the cockpit doorway, Captain Jackson Montgomery observed the interaction with growing concern. A 20-year veteran pilot, he'd seen this type of situation before. "Is there a problem, Heather?" he called out. "Just confirming this passenger's credentials," Heather replied with a tight smile. "Can't be too careful with security these days." Finally, after checking Jasmine's ID against her boarding pass 3 times, Heather reluctantly stepped aside. "Fine. You can board. But we maintain certain standards on Apex flights." Jasmine's heart pounded as she stepped onto the plane. The interior was luxurious, with cream leather seats and polished wood accents. Only 4 other passengers were aboard, all white executives in business attire who barely glanced up as she entered. "Your seat is in the back," Heather directed, pointing to the last row despite numerous empty premium seats available. As Jasmine moved to store her bag in the overhead compartment, Heather stopped her. "What do you think you're doing?" "Storing my bag," Jasmine replied, confused. "Let me see that." Heather snatched the Louis Vuitton bag from Jasmine's hands. "Please be careful," Jasmine protested. "My laptop's in there with my presentation." Heather turned the bag over roughly, examining the stitching and zippers. "Where did you get this?" "It was a gift from Dr. Washington at Microvision." "Right," Heather scoffed. "And I got my Chanel from Santa Claus." The co-pilot, Tricia Williams, emerged from the cockpit in time to witness the exchange. She frowned but remained silent. "We don't allow counterfeit items on this aircraft," Heather announced loudly enough for other passengers to hear. "It's company policy." "It's not counterfeit," Jasmine insisted, her voice rising in panic. "It's real." Please, my laptop, if this were real, it wouldn't have this stitching issue, Heather declared, pointing to a perfectly normal part of the bag's design. I can't allow fake designer items on board. It's a customs violation. Before Jasmine could protest further, Heather carried the bag to the galley and dropped it unceremoniously into a disposal bin, where it landed with a sickening crack. No! Jasmine cried out, rushing forward. Return to your seat immediately or I'll have you removed from this flight, Heather threatened. We have standards to maintain. Two other flight attendants exchanged uncomfortable glances but said nothing. One, a younger woman named Tara, looked especially troubled but quickly averted her eyes when Jasmine silently pleaded for help. Tears threatening to spill, Jasmine returned to her seat, her mind racing. Everything she'd worked for was in that bag, her future, her father's future, her community's pride. And now it was literally being treated like garbage. Please, Jasmine begged, approaching Heather again once the other passengers were settled. That bag contains my laptop with my presentation for tomorrow. It's the only copy I have. I need it back. Heather barely looked up from her pre-flight checklist. I've already disposed of the counterfeit item as per company policy. You should have thought about that before trying to bring fake designer goods on board. It wasn't fake. Jasmine insisted, her voice cracking. Dar. Washington from Microvision gave it to me. Call her if you don't believe me. I don't have time for this, Heather dismissed. Please return to your seat. We're preparing for departure. Captain Montgomery's voice came over the intercom. Crew, prepare for departure in 5 minutes. Desperate, Jasmine tried to peek into the galley where she'd seen Heather discard her bag, but the curtain was drawn. I need to use the restroom, she told another flight attendant, Tara, who hesitantly pointed toward the back of the plane. Once out of sight, Jasmine quickly ducked into the galley instead of the bathroom. She spotted the disposal bin and rushed toward it, but the bag was no longer there. Looking for something? Heather's cold voice came from behind her. My laptop, Jasmine pleaded. Please. My entire future depends on that presentation. The counterfeit item has been removed from the aircraft, Heather stated flatly. Return to your seat immediately or I'll have security remove you. Tears now flowing freely, Jasmine returned to her seat. She tried to call her father and Dr. Washington, but the plane was in a cellular dead zone on the tarmac. Unknown to Jasmine, co-pilot Tricia Williams had witnessed everything. During pre-flight checks, she discreetly slipped into the terminal and retrieved the bag from the disposal area where Heather had deposited it. The beautiful leather was now stained with coffee, and when Tricia opened it, she discovered the laptop inside had apparently been damaged by liquid. When Tricia attempted to turn it on, the screen remained black. Damn it, she muttered, knowing they were minutes from takeoff. She quickly stashed the damaged bag and laptop in the cockpit, planning to return it to the young passenger once they were airborne. Meanwhile, Jasmine had made her way to the terminal, desperate to report what had happened. At the service desk, the agent looked at her with thinly veiled impatience. You're claiming a flight attendant threw away your designer bag containing your laptop? Yes, Jasmine insisted. On the Apex charter to San Francisco. The agent typed something into her computer. And your name is? Jasmine Taylor. I don't see any Jasmine Taylor booked on an Apex flight today. It's a charter through Microvision Technology. Please, can you just check the disposal area? My laptop has my presentation for tomorrow. The agent sighed dramatically. Wait here. While the agent was gone, a security officer approached. His badge read, Brad Wilson. Is there a problem here? He asked, his hand resting casually on his belt near his taser. The flight attendant threw away my bag with my laptop in it, Jasmine explained. I'm just trying to get it back. Aha, Officer Wilson replied skeptically. And why would a flight attendant do that? She said it was counterfeit, but it wasn't. It was a gift. Officer Wilson's radio crackled. "We have a situation at Gate 7, came a voice. "I'll be right there," he responded before turning back to Jasmine. "Look, miss, we don't have time for these kinds of disruptions. Either return to your flight or exit the terminal. If you continue causing a disturbance, I'll have to escort you out." The service agent returned empty-handed. "Nothing matching that description in our disposal areas." Jasmine felt the walls closing in. Should she leave? Try to book a commercial flight? But even if she could afford it, without her presentation, what was the point? She thought of her father, who had worked 16-hour shifts for years to support her education. She thought of her neighbors who had pooled their limited resources to help her look professional. She thought of her mother, who had always told her to stand up for herself. This opportunity meant everything, not just to her, but to her entire community. She couldn't give up. Jasmine hurried back to the gate, only to find the jet bridge door closed. Through the window, she could see the Apex charter still at the gate, apparently delayed. Her phone chimed with a notification. The backup files she'd hastily uploaded to her cloud storage before leaving were corrupted, likely due to the spotty internet in her apartment building. The algorithm she'd spent 4 years perfecting was trapped in that damaged laptop. As she stared helplessly at the plane, memories flooded back. The science teacher who had accused her of cheating because her project was too advanced for someone from her background. The college fair where recruiters had directed her toward community colleges despite her perfect GPA. The countless times she'd been told, explicitly or implicitly, that spaces of excellence weren't meant for people who looked like her. Yet here she was, facing the same barrier again, just when she'd finally earned her place. The Apex charter jet remained mysteriously at the gate, 30 minutes past its scheduled departure time. Through the terminal windows, Jasmine could see activity around the aircraft, ground crew speaking into radios, a fuel truck departing, what appeared to be an animated discussion in the cockpit. "Excuse me," a crisp voice called out behind her. "Are you by any chance associated with the Microvision charter?" Jasmine turned to find a woman in a sharp business suit holding a tablet. The woman's ID badge identified her as Angela Reeves, Apex Charter Client Relations. "Yes," Jasmine replied cautiously. "I'm supposed to be on that flight." "Excellent. We've been looking everywhere for you." Angela's relief was palpable. "There seems to have been some confusion. May I see your ID?" Jasmine provided her driver's license, which Angela quickly verified against information on her tablet. "Perfect. Ms. Taylor, I need to get you on that plane immediately. The flight has been held specifically for you. But the flight attendant will sort everything out. Please, come with me." As they hurried toward the jet bridge, Angela spoke into her radio, "I've located Ms. Taylor. We're boarding now." When they reached the aircraft door, Heather was there, her face a mask of professional courtesy that slipped momentarily when she recognized Jasmine. "Ms. Blackwell," Angela said firmly, "this is Jasmine Taylor, the primary passenger for this charter." "There must be some mistake," Heather replied, glancing at her manifest. "The Microvision charter is for a Dr. Taylor." At that moment, Captain Montgomery appeared behind Heather. "The charter is for Ms. Jasmine Taylor, the winner of the National Youth STEM competition. Microvision arranged this flight specifically for her." The color drained from Heather's face. "But I thought..." She looked from the captain to Jasmine, realization dawning in her eyes. Angela turned to Jasmine. "Ms. Taylor, on behalf of Apex Charter, I want to personally welcome you aboard. Captain Montgomery will ensure you have everything you need for a comfortable journey." Heather's demeanor transformed instantly. "Ms. Taylor, welcome aboard," she said with a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "If you'll follow me, we have a special seat prepared for you." As Jasmine reboarded the aircraft, the atmosphere had completely changed. The other passengers, previously indifferent, now watched with interest. "Ladies and gentlemen, came Captain Montgomery's voice over the intercom. "We apologize for the delay. We're pleased to welcome our special guest, Ms. Jasmine Taylor, the brilliant young scientist whose groundbreaking clean energy algorithm has earned her a presentation to the Microvision board tomorrow." One of the business travelers looked up from his laptop. "Wait, you're Jasmine Taylor? I read about your algorithm in Tech Quarterly. Your approach to quantum computing in energy distribution is revolutionary." Another passenger chimed in, "My daughter has your poster on her wall. You were featured in Young Minds Changing the World, right?" Jasmine nodded, still processing the rapid change in her circumstances. All the while, Heather hovered nearby, her smile fixed and hollow. "Your regular seat appears to have been reassigned," Heather said carefully. "We've prepared the premier cabin seat for you instead." "Thank you," Jasmine replied evenly, "but first, I need my bag that you threw away. It contains my laptop with my presentation." "There seems to have been a misunderstanding," Heather said loudly enough for others to hear. "No bags were discarded. You said it was counterfeit and put it in the trash," Jasmine insisted, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm afraid you must be confused," Heather countered smoothly. "Perhaps in the excitement of the day. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to gaslight you after treating you unfairly? Comment number 1 if you've experienced discrimination followed by denial. Hit that like button if you believe people should be held accountable for their actions, and subscribe to see more stories of resilience in the face of prejudice. What do you think happens next? Does Jasmine find her laptop? Will Heather face consequences for her actions? Let's continue this incredible journey. Co-pilot Tricia Williams emerged from the cockpit, the damaged Louis Vuitton bag in hand. "I believe this belongs to you, Ms. Taylor," she said, shooting a pointed look at Heather. "I found it in the disposal bin." The bag was stained with coffee, the once pristine leather now discolored. Jasmine quickly opened it to check her laptop, which showed no signs of life when she tried to power it on. "It's not working," she said, panic rising in her voice. "I've arranged for an IT specialist to meet us in San Francisco," Captain Montgomery assured her. "We'll do everything we can to recover your data." Heather's face had turned an unnatural shade of red. "I was simply following protocol for suspected counterfeit items. There is no such protocol," Captain Montgomery cut in sharply. "Ms. Taylor, please take your seat. We'll be taking off shortly. Ms. Blackwell, I need to speak with you in private." As Jasmine settled into the plush leather seat at the front of the cabin, she overheard snippets of the heated conversation in the galley. Completely unacceptable behavior. Wasn't aware she was the VIP. Serious consequences. The revelation about the chartered plane made perfect sense now. Dr. Washington had arranged this entire flight just for her. Not as an afterthought or a courtesy, but as a statement, Jasmine Taylor deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. She belonged in these elite spaces just as much as anyone else. As the plane finally took off, Jasmine remembered all the times Dr. Washington had mentioned her own struggles as one of the few black women in tech leadership. "They'll try to make you feel like you don't belong," she had told Jasmine. "Your job is to prove them wrong, not by arguing, but by excelling." But would she even get that chance now, with her presentation lost in a damaged laptop? At 30,000 feet above the American heartland, Jasmine sat with her dead laptop open on the tray table before her. Despite the revelation that she was the VIP for whom the entire flight had been chartered, Heather continued to create small discomforts throughout the journey. Coffee appeared for all passengers except Jasmine. When she requested a drink, Heather responded that they were temporarily out, only to serve the same beverage to another passenger minutes later. The Wi-Fi access code was accidentally omitted from her welcome package. Small, plausibly deniable acts that sent a clear message: you still don't belong here. Using her phone, Jasmine attempted to recreate portions of her presentation from memory. For years of research and coding couldn't be easily reconstructed in a 3-hour flight, but she was determined to try. "Excuse me," said a voice from across the aisle. A middle-aged man in a tailored suit introduced himself as Dr. Brian Parker, a technology investor. I couldn't help noticing you're having computer troubles. Is there anything I can do to help? Unless you can recover data from a water-damaged laptop, probably not, Jasmine replied with a weak smile. Actually, I might know a few tricks. He examined her laptop, attempting various recovery techniques before shaking his head. The liquid damage is extensive. But the hard drive might still be intact. With the right equipment in San Francisco, there's a good chance your data can be recovered. Thank you for trying, Jasmine said. Throughout this exchange, other passengers had been watching the interaction between Jasmine and Heather. Several had begun recording discreetly on their phones. When Heather accidentally spilled water near Jasmine's seat without offering to clean it up, Dr. Parker's phone could be seen capturing the incident. When Jasmine requested a blanket in the chilly cabin and was told none were available, another passenger recorded Heather distributing blankets to others just minutes later. At the 1-hour mark into the flight, Captain Montgomery announced that Wi-Fi was now operational. Jasmine immediately connected and called Dr. Washington via video chat. Jasmine. How's the flight? Dr. Washington's warm smile faltered as she saw Jasmine's expression. What's wrong? In a hushed voice, Jasmine explained everything that had happened, from being stopped repeatedly at security to Heather discarding her bag and the subsequent revelation about the charter. Dr. Washington's expression transformed from concern to cold fury. Let me get this straight. The flight attendant profiled you, accused you of carrying counterfeit goods, threw away the bag I gave you containing your presentation, and then tried to deny it happened? Yes, Jasmine confirmed, her voice breaking slightly. And my laptop won't turn on. All my work, my algorithm. I'm calling the airline CEO right now, Dr. Washington said decisively. This is blatant discrimination, and it's going to be addressed at the highest level. As for your presentation, don't worry. We'll figure something out. As Jasmine ended the call, she noticed several passengers watching her with expressions of sympathy and outrage on her behalf. The cabin had grown silent, with everyone pretending not to listen while clearly absorbing every word. Jasmine closed her eyes, remembering her father's words the night before she left, there will always be people who try to put you in what they think is your place. Your job isn't to fight them, it's to show them that your place is wherever you decide it should be. At that moment, co-pilot Williams emerged from the cockpit and knelt beside Jasmine's seat. The captain asked me to inform you that we've contacted our IT department in San Francisco. They believe your hard drive can be salvaged if the water damage hasn't reached the platters. Thank you, Jasmine said sincerely. Also, Tricia added in a lower voice, I want you to know that I've documented everything that happened. What was done to you was wrong, and I've filed a formal incident report. 3 rows back, Heather pretended to be busy with the beverage cart, but her tight expression revealed she had overheard. The remainder of the flight passed in tense silence. As they began their descent into San Francisco, Jasmine received another call, this time from an unknown number. Ms. Taylor? This is Robert Kensington, CEO of Apex Charter Airlines. Dr. Washington has brought a serious matter to my attention, and I wanted to personally assure you that we're investigating the incident thoroughly. A car will be waiting to take you directly to Microvision headquarters, and our top IT specialists will do everything possible to recover your data. Thank you, Mr. Kensington, Jasmine replied, aware that Heather was now watching her intently from the galley. Additionally, the CEO continued, I want to assure you that Apex Charter does not tolerate discrimination of any kind. The behavior you experienced is entirely contrary to our values, and appropriate action will be taken. As the plane touched down at San Francisco International Airport, an announcement came over the intercom, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at our destination. Please remain seated until the aircraft comes to a complete stop. Security personnel will be boarding before disembarkation. Jasmine's heart sank. After everything that had happened, was she now going to be detained? The cabin door opened, and two uniformed airport security officers stepped aboard. They spoke briefly with Captain Montgomery, who pointed toward the rear galley. "Heather Blackwell," one officer called out. Heather stepped forward, her professional mask slipping to reveal genuine shock. "Yes. We need you to come with us, please. Airline management has requested your immediate removal from duty pending an investigation." All eyes in the cabin turned to watch as Heather was escorted from the aircraft, her protests fading as the cabin door closed behind her. Captain Montgomery approached Jasmine. "Ms. Taylor, on behalf of Apex Charter, I want to extend our sincerest apologies for your experience today. Your car is waiting at the terminal, and our IT team is standing by to assist with your laptop." As Jasmine gathered her belongings, the other passengers, who had witnessed the entire saga unfold, began to applaud spontaneously. Their collective recognition of the injustice she had faced and her dignity in handling it moved her deeply. But as she stepped off the plane, Jasmine knew her challenges were far from over. She had less than 18 hours to recover or recreate 4 years of work before the most important presentation of her life. Jasmine stepped into the private terminal at San Francisco International Airport and froze. A crowd had gathered, not just the Microvision representatives she expected, but news crews with cameras and microphones at the ready. "Ms. Taylor, can you comment on the incident aboard your flight today? Is it true the flight attendant racially profiled you? How do you feel about the videos going viral?" "Videos?" Jasmine whispered, bewildered. A tall man in a Microvision polo shirt stepped forward, creating a barrier between Jasmine and the press. "I'm Anthony Jenkins, head of security for Microvision. We need to get you to headquarters. Dr. Washington is waiting." As they moved through the terminal, Anthony explained, several passengers uploaded videos of the incident to social media during the flight. They've been viewed millions of times in the past hour. He showed her his phone, where a clip clearly showed Heather tossing Jasmine's bag into the disposal bin despite her protests. Another video captured Heather's attempts to gaslight Jasmine after the revelation that the plane had been chartered for her. The hashtag Justice for Jasmine was trending nationwide. Outside, a sleek black SUV waited. Inside was a woman with a laptop. "I'm Sandra Chen from Apex IT," she explained as they pulled away from the curb. "I'll need your damaged laptop to begin recovery efforts immediately." Jasmine handed over her computer, watching anxiously as Sandra connected it to various devices. "The liquid damaged the motherboard, but the hard drive seems intact," Sandra explained. "I should be able to extract the data, but it will take a few hours." "I don't have a few hours," Jasmine said desperately. "My presentation is first thing tomorrow morning." "We'll work through the night if necessary," Sandra promised. At Microvision headquarters, a gleaming glass and steel structure in the heart of Silicon Valley, Dr. Washington was waiting in the lobby. The normally composed executive's eyes were red-rimmed with fury and what might have been tears. "Jasmine," she said, embracing the young woman tightly. "I am so sorry this happened to you." "It's not your fault," Jasmine assured her. "Yes, it is. I arranged that flight. I should have been there." They were interrupted by the arrival of two men in expensive suits. "Ms. Taylor? I'm Lawrence Davidson, Chief Legal Officer for Apex Charter Airlines. This is my colleague, James Wilson. We'd like to speak with you privately." Dr. Washington stepped forward protectively. "Anything you have to say to Ms. Taylor can be said in my presence." In a glass-walled conference room, Davidson placed a document on the table. "Ms. Taylor, Apex Charter would like to offer you compensation for today's unfortunate incident. This agreement includes a substantial settlement as well as lifetime premier status on all our flights." Jasmine glanced at the figure on the page, enough money to pay for her entire college education and then some. "There's just one small matter," Davidson continued smoothly. "We'd need you to sign this non-disclosure agreement, stating that you won't discuss the incident publicly." Dar. Washington's expression hardened. You want her to take your hush money and pretend nothing happened. We prefer to think of it as an acknowledgement that mistakes were made, along with a commitment to move forward constructively, Wilson replied. Before Jasmine could respond, her phone chimed with a news alert. The headline read, "Breaking, Flight Attendant Claims Misunderstanding in Viral Discrimination Incident." The article quoted Heather Blackwell. "I was simply following security protocols. This is being blown out of proportion by social media. I didn't realize who she was, and now I'm being cancelled for doing my job." Dr. Washington's laugh was without humor. "She still doesn't get it. It shouldn't matter who you were. You're a human being deserving of basic respect." The Microvision PR director entered the room. "Dr. Washington, Ms. Taylor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this story is exploding. We've received dozens of media requests for statements. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News all want interviews." Meanwhile, Sandra was working feverishly on Jasmine's laptop. "I've managed to access the hard drive," she reported, "but some sectors are corrupted. I can recover about 70% of your files, but portions of the algorithm appear to be damaged." Jasmine felt the room spinning. Everything she'd worked for was slipping away. At that moment, her phone rang. It was her father. "Baby girl, are you okay? It's all over the news here." Hearing his voice centered her. "I'm trying to be, Dad." "Listen to me," Darnell said firmly. "Your mother always said that pressure makes diamonds. Whatever happens with this presentation, I am proud of you. Your community is proud of you." As Jasmine ended the call, Dr. Washington placed a hand on her shoulder. "We have a choice to make. Do we take their money and stay silent, or do we use this moment to speak truth to power?" Jasmine looked at the settlement offer, then at the news alert about Heather's statement, then finally at the partially recovered files from her algorithm. "I need to focus on my presentation first," she said decisively. "But I won't sign anything that prevents me from telling the truth about what happened." Davidson and Wilson exchanged glances. "We'll give you some time to consider the offer," Davidson said, rising from his seat. As they left, Dr. Washington smiled for the first time since Jasmine's arrival. "That's the right decision. Now, let's figure out how to salvage your presentation." Throughout the evening, the story continued to gain traction. Hashtags multiplied, hashtag flying while black, hashtag Apex airline discrimination, hashtag Jasmine deserves better. More passengers came forward with their recordings. The airline's stock price began to drop as calls for boycott spread across social media. In the midst of this storm, Jasmine worked with Microvision's technical team to reconstruct the missing portions of her algorithm. Hour after hour, she recreated complex equations from memory, fueled by determination and cup after cup of coffee. "It's not exactly the same as the original," she admitted as midnight approached. "But in some ways, this version might actually be more efficient." Dr. Washington, who had stayed by her side throughout, squeezed her shoulder. "Sometimes our greatest innovations come from our biggest challenges." Just then, Sandra burst into the room, her face alight with excitement. "I found an automatic backup file. Your laptop created a hidden recovery point right before the liquid damage occurred. I think I can restore almost everything." For the first time that day, Jasmine allowed herself to hope that things might turn out all right after all. Dawn broke over Silicon Valley as Jasmine stared at her reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror. Dark circles shadowed her eyes after a night of minimal sleep, yet determination shone through the exhaustion. In 4 hours, she would stand before Microvision's entire board of directors and a room full of investors to present her algorithm. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, echoing her father's words from their early morning phone call. A knock at the door revealed Dr. Washington, already impeccably dressed in a power suit despite the early hour. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Jasmine admitted. "But ready." "Good. Sandra worked through the night and recovered about 90% of your original files. The technical team has integrated them with your reconstructed sections. They're running final tests now. They headed to Microvision headquarters, where the IT department had set up a temporary workstation for Jasmine. Sandra greeted them with a thumbs up. The algorithm is running beautifully. We've got everything except a small section of the quantum distribution calculations, but your recreated version actually processes faster than the original. Jasmine immediately dove into reviewing the code, making small adjustments and preparing her presentation slides. The Microvision team worked alongside her, offering support without taking over. Ms. Taylor? A familiar voice interrupted her concentration. She looked up to see Robert Kensington, the CEO of Apex Charter Airlines, standing awkwardly at the edge of her workspace. Mr. Kensington, she acknowledged, surprised by his physical presence. I wanted to personally extend my deepest apologies for your experience yesterday, he said, his discomfort evident. There is no excuse for how you were treated. Dr. Washington stepped forward protectively. With all due respect, Mr. Kensington, Ms. Taylor is preparing for a critical presentation. This isn't the time. Of course, he nodded. I just wanted to inform you that Ms. Blackwell has been terminated from Apex Charter, effective immediately. We're also implementing mandatory anti-bias training for all employees and reviewing our policies regarding suspected counterfeit items. He placed a business card on the desk. When you're ready, I'd like to discuss how Apex can make this right, beyond financial compensation. Perhaps you might consider consulting on our diversity initiatives. After he left, Jasmine returned to her work with renewed focus. Despite the chaos of the past 24 hours, she refused to let yesterday's discrimination derail her future. At 10 o'clock, a surge of activity signaled the arrival of board members. Jasmine glimpsed them through the glass walls, predominantly older white men in expensive suits, with a few women and people of color among them. Imposter syndrome kicking in yet? Dr. Washington asked with a knowing smile. How did you know? Because I feel it every single day, even as an executive. She straightened Jasmine's collar. Remember, they invited you here because of your brilliant mind. You earned this spot. Jasmine nodded, thinking of her tiny bedroom in Harlem where she developed the initial algorithm on a second-hand laptop, working late into the night while her father worked double shifts. She thought of her mother, who had taught science to neighborhood kids on their kitchen table before cancer took her too soon. She thought of Mr. Jenkins, who had loaned her advanced textbooks from his personal collection when the school library couldn't provide them. She belonged in this room not despite where she came from, but because of it. Her perspective, shaped by necessity and resourcefulness, had helped her see solutions others had missed. As she was about to enter the boardroom, her phone buzzed with a notification. News outlets were reporting that former Apex flight attendant Heather Blackwell had given an interview claiming she was being scapegoated, and that the incident was being blown out of proportion because of today's political climate. Jasmine took a deep breath, pushing aside the anger that threatened to distract her. Just then, a commotion at the reception area caught her attention. A familiar figure in a hospital janitor's uniform was arguing with security. Dad? Jasmine gasped, rushing forward. Darnell Taylor turned, his face lighting up at the sight of his daughter. There's my girl. How are you here? You were in New York last night. Dr. Washington arranged an emergency flight. He embraced her tightly. I couldn't let you do this alone. Dr. Washington smiled. Everyone needs their support system on the big days. With her father and mentor by her side, Jasmine entered the boardroom. 30 faces turned to look at her, some curious, some skeptical, all evaluating. Ms. Taylor, began CEO Philip Armstrong, under normal circumstances, we would jump right into your technical presentation. However, given the events that have transpired and the attention they've received, perhaps we should address the elephant in the room. Jasmine's heart sank. Would her algorithm be overshadowed by yesterday's incident? Actually, Sir, she replied firmly, I prefer to focus on the reason I'm here, my clean energy solution. Yesterday was unfortunate, but today is about the future. A murmur of approval rippled through the room. Armstrong nodded with newfound respect. Very well. The floor is yours. As Jasmine connected her newly recovered presentation to the display system, a wave of anxiety washed over her. What if the algorithm failed? What if the recovered files were corrupted? What if she caught her father's eye? He gave her the smallest nod, full of absolute confidence. Jasmine took a deep breath and began to speak. Imagine a world where energy distribution is not just efficient, but adaptive and intelligent. For the next 45 minutes, she commanded the room, explaining complex quantum computing principles with clarity and passion. When she ran the simulation of her algorithm, showing how it could reduce energy waste by 47% while increasing distribution efficiency by 62%, audible gasps came from several board members. The applications extend beyond just power grids, she explained. This same principle could revolutionize water distribution, transportation networks, even data centers. When she concluded, the room erupted in applause. Board members fired technical questions at her, which she answered with confidence and precision. The skeptical expressions had transformed into excitement and calculation, the look of people who recognized a valuable opportunity. As the Q&A session wound down, one board member raised his hand. Ms. Taylor, I have to ask, after your experience yesterday, would you still choose to work with a company like ours? Many would understand if you had reservations about entering a field that hasn't always been welcoming to people who look like you. The room fell silent, waiting for her answer. Jasmine looked at her father, who had sacrificed so much for her to be standing in this room. She looked at Dr. Washington, who had faced similar barriers and broken through them. And she thought of her community in Harlem, watching her journey with hope and pride. That's precisely why I need to be here, she answered. The future of technology should be shaped by diverse perspectives. Yesterday showed that we still have work to do in creating truly inclusive spaces. But today shows why that work matters. My algorithm exists because of my unique path, not in spite of it. The board member nodded thoughtfully as Armstrong stood. I believe we've heard enough to make a decision. Ms. Taylor, Dr. Washington, if you'll excuse us for a few minutes. As they waited outside, Jasmine's phone continued to buzz with notifications about the Apex incident. The story had spread internationally now, with commentators debating everything from corporate responsibility to systemic racism. Whatever happens in there, Dr. Washington said quietly, you've already won. That room full of power players will never forget your name or your brilliance. After what seemed like an eternity but was actually only 15 minutes, they were called back in. Armstrong's expression gave nothing away as he addressed Jasmine. Ms. Taylor, the board has reached a unanimous decision regarding your algorithm. We want to fully fund the development of your algorithm, with you as the project lead. The words hung in the air as Jasmine processed their meaning. Success. After everything, she had succeeded. Armstrong continued, we're prepared to offer you a development budget of $20 million, with an additional scholarship for you to complete your education at the institution of your choice while working with us part-time. Applause broke out around the table. Darnell Taylor wiped tears from his eyes as Dr. Washington squeezed Jasmine's shoulder in congratulation. Thank you, Jasmine said, her voice steady despite the emotion surging through her. I accept. As the meeting concluded and board members came forward to introduce themselves personally, Jasmine's phone buzzed continuously. The story of her ordeal, and now her triumph, was spreading even further. In the hallway outside, Dr. Washington pulled Jasmine and her father aside. This is just the beginning, she said. The board's decision is excellent news, but now we need to address how Microvision responds to what happened yesterday. She led them to her office, where the company's PR director and legal counsel were waiting. On a large screen, they could see various news channels covering the Apex Airlines incident. Apex has issued a formal apology, the PR director explained, but it's being criticized as too little, too late. They've confirmed that Heather Blackwell has been terminated, but she's giving interviews claiming she's being scapegoated. On the screen, footage played of Heather speaking to a reporter. "I was simply following what I thought was company policy. I didn't see color, I saw what I believed was a counterfeit item. Now I'm losing my career because everyone's so afraid of being called racist." Jasmine shook her head in disbelief. She still doesn't understand that her assumptions were the problem. Why did she assume my bag was fake in the first place? Exactly, Dr. Washington agreed. And now, Microvision needs to decide how we respond. The company's reputation is now linked to this incident because it happened to our guest on a flight we chartered. The legal counsel cleared his throat. Some board members are suggesting we distance ourselves from the controversy. Focus on the technology, not the social issues. Absolutely not, Dr. Washington said firmly. Jasmine deserves our full support. The question is, the PR director interjected, what does that support look like? A statement? Legal action against Apex? Something else? All eyes turned to Jasmine, who suddenly realized that her voice mattered in this decision. "I need to think about it," she said. "This isn't just about me anymore." Throughout the afternoon, the situation continued to evolve. The videos had now been viewed over 50 million times. Hashtags were trending globally. Civil rights organizations had issued statements condemning Apex Airlines and calling for industry-wide changes. Amid this whirlwind, Jasmine received a call from a number she didn't recognize. "Ms. Taylor? This is Congresswoman Barbara Hayes. I saw what happened to you, and I'd like to invite you to testify before the Transportation Committee about discrimination in commercial aviation." More calls followed, from major news outlets, advocacy organizations, even celebrities offering support. The incident was rapidly transforming from a personal humiliation into a national conversation about racial bias. By evening, Microvision's board had reconvened for an emergency session to determine the company's official response. Jasmine was invited to attend. "We have 3 options," Armstrong explained. 1. Issue a statement of support for Ms. Taylor but otherwise remain neutral. 2. Join Ms. Taylor if she pursues legal action against Apex. 3. Take a leadership position by announcing new diversity initiatives inspired by this incident. The debate was heated. Some board members argued that getting involved in social issues could alienate customers and investors. Others countered that staying silent would be perceived as complicity. "If I may," Jasmine said, speaking up for the first time. All heads turned toward her. This incident has revealed problems larger than one flight attendant or one airline. It's about who feels welcome in spaces of innovation and excellence. As a technology company shaping the future, Microvision has an opportunity to lead by example. Her words shifted the atmosphere in the room. Even the most reluctant board members seemed to recognize the wisdom in her perspective. Meanwhile, outside the company walls, public opinion was turning sharply against Apex Airlines. Their stock had dropped 11%. Customers were canceling reservations and posting videos of themselves cutting up their Apex frequent flyer cards. Later that evening, Apex CEO Robert Kensington appeared in a televised interview, looking haggard and defensive. "We acknowledge that mistakes were made," he said carefully. "Ms. Blackwell's actions were not in line with our company values, which is why she is no longer employed by Apex Charter." "But isn't this about more than one employee?" the interviewer pressed. "The videos clearly show multiple staff members witnessing the discrimination without intervening." Kensington shifted uncomfortably. "We're implementing comprehensive bias training for all employees." After the fact, the interviewer noted. "Shouldn't these systems have been in place already?" As Jasmine watched from Dr. Washington's office, her phone rang again. It was Lawrence Davidson, Apex's chief legal officer. "Ms. Taylor, I'm calling with a revised offer." We're prepared to double the settlement amount and establish a scholarship fund in your name for underrepresented students in STEM fields. With an NDA? Jasmine asked. We would need some assurance that the matter is considered resolved, Davidson replied carefully. Then my answer is still no, Jasmine said. This isn't about money. It's about accountability and change. After ending the call, Jasmine turned to Dr. Washington. They're still trying to make this go away quietly. Because they know how damaging this is, Dr. Washington replied. But you're right to hold firm. Some things are more important than money. By the next morning, Microvision had reached a decision. At a press conference attended by major media outlets, CEO Philip Armstrong stood beside Jasmine and Dr. Washington to make an announcement. Yesterday, an incident occurred that highlighted the barriers that still exist for people of color in spaces where they have every right to be. Today, Microvision is announcing 3 initiatives in response. He outlined a new scholarship program for underrepresented students in STEM, a partnership with historically black colleges and universities to create internship pipelines, and a commitment to increase diversity within Microvision's own workforce and leadership. We are also proud to announce that Ms. Jasmine Taylor's groundbreaking algorithm will be developed with full funding from Microvision, with Ms. Taylor herself leading the project while completing her education. The press conference was broadcast nationally, with Jasmine's poised and articulate responses to questions drawing particular attention. She neither downplayed the discrimination she had faced nor allowed it to overshadow her intellectual achievement. My algorithm exists because of diversity of thought, she told reporters. Different perspectives lead to different solutions. That's why inclusion isn't just morally right. It's also good business. As the media coverage continued, public pressure on Apex Airlines intensified. More employees came forward with stories of witnessing or experiencing discrimination. The company's initial response was increasingly viewed as inadequate. 2 days after the incident, Apex CEO Robert Kensington requested a meeting with Jasmine. This time, she agreed to meet him on her terms, at Microvision headquarters, with Dr. Washington and her father present. Ms. Taylor, Kensington began, visibly humbled, I want to personally apologize for what happened on our aircraft. After reviewing all the evidence and speaking with other staff members, it's clear that what you experienced was unacceptable discrimination, not a misunderstanding or a policy issue. He slid a document across the table, not a settlement offer with an NDA, but a comprehensive plan for systemic changes within Apex Airlines. We're establishing a diversity and inclusion officer position at the executive level. We're revising our training procedures and creating clear protocols for reporting and addressing bias. And we'd like to offer you a role as a consultant in developing these initiatives, compensated at executive rates. Jasmine reviewed the document carefully. These are positive steps, she acknowledged. But the real test will be in the implementation, not the announcement. We understand that, Kensington nodded. And we're prepared to set measurable goals with public reporting on our progress. As the meeting concluded, Jasmine felt a weight lifting. The incident would always be part of her story, but it wouldn't define her legacy. That would be determined by what she created, what she built, and how she transformed spaces for those who would come after her. Later that day, as Jasmine and her father prepared to return to New York to pack for her permanent move to California, she received one more call, this one from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, inviting her to participate in a summit on diversity in STEM. The path forward was clear now, and it extended far beyond what she could have imagined when she boarded that flight just days ago. 1 year later, Jasmine Taylor stood at the podium in Microvision's main auditorium, addressing a crowd of industry leaders, investors, and journalists. Behind her, a large screen displayed the real-time data from her energy distribution algorithm, now powering a pilot program in 3 major cities. When I began this journey, I was trying to solve a technical problem, she said, her confidence evident in every word. But along the way, I learned that the greatest barriers to innovation aren't always technological, sometimes they're the artificial limitations we place on who gets to participate in creating the future. In the front row sat her father, Darnell Taylor, no longer wearing a janitor's uniform but dressed in a sharp suit as the director of Microvision's new community outreach program. Beside him was Dr. Washington, recently promoted to Chief Innovation Officer. And next to her was Mr. Jenkins, Jasmine's former teacher, now heading the education component of the Jasmine Taylor Foundation for Diversity in STEM. The past year had brought changes that once seemed impossible. The settlement Jasmine had eventually accepted from Apex Airlines, without an NDA, had funded scholarships for 50 students from underrepresented backgrounds. The airline had completely overhauled its training and reporting systems, with measurable improvements in customer satisfaction among passengers of color. Heather Blackwell had faded from public view after her attempts to portray herself as a victim backfired. Her termination had been upheld after more employees came forward with similar stories of discriminatory behavior. Most importantly, Jasmine's algorithm had exceeded all expectations. The pilot program had reduced energy costs by 52% in participating cities while significantly decreasing carbon emissions. Microvision's stock had doubled, and Jasmine, still completing her education at MIT through a special remote program, had become the youngest patent holder in the company's history. Today, I'm announcing the next phase of our project, Jasmine continued. We're expanding to 20 more cities across America, including my hometown of Harlem, where I first dreamed of creating technology that could change lives. Applause filled the auditorium as Jasmine detailed the technical specifications of the expansion. When the presentation concluded, Armstrong stepped forward. Ms. Taylor's vision has transformed not just our company's approach to energy distribution, but our entire corporate culture, he acknowledged. The diversity initiatives inspired by her experience have made Microvision stronger, more innovative, and more profitable. This wasn't empty corporate speak, the numbers backed it up. Microvision's more diverse hiring practices had led to measurable increases in patent applications, successful product launches, and market share. After the presentation, as attendees mingled at the reception, Jasmine found a quiet moment with her father. "Mom would be so proud," Darnell said, his eyes glistening. "I feel her with me every day," Jasmine replied, touching the small locket around her neck that contained her mother's picture. Dr. Washington joined them, champagne flute in hand. The Secretary of Energy called. "They want to implement your algorithm nationwide. This is just the beginning, Jasmine." As the evening wound down, Jasmine slipped away to the parking garage, where her driver was waiting to take her to the airport. She was flying to Washington, D.C. the next morning to address Congress about green energy innovation. The driver held the door open for her. "Good evening, Ms. Taylor. Flying commercial or private tonight?" Jasmine smiled. "Commercial. Apex Airlines, actually." Since the incident, she had made a point of flying Apex whenever possible, monitoring their progress firsthand. The changes had been significant: more diverse flight crews, improved training, clear protocols for reporting bias. The airline had transformed its corporate culture from within, proving that accountability could lead to genuine improvement. At the airport, Jasmine moved efficiently through security, where agents treated all passengers with equal respect, a small but meaningful change from a year ago. As she reached her gate, several travelers recognized her, approaching with shy smiles and words of admiration. Boarding the plane, Jasmine was greeted by a flight attendant who recognized her immediately. "Ms. Taylor. It's an honor to have you with us tonight. I joined Apex because of the changes you inspired." Taking her first-class seat, an upgrade courtesy of the airline, Jasmine reflected on how different this flight was from that fateful day a year ago. Her laptop, containing the next evolution of her algorithm, sat securely in the genuine Louis Vuitton bag that had become something of a symbol in her story. As the plane took off, Jasmine opened her laptop to review her congressional testimony. The document was titled "Innovation Through Inclusion: How Diversity Drives Technical Excellence." It began with the story of her algorithm's development, continued through the discrimination she had faced, and concluded with the transformative changes that had resulted, not just for her personally, but for corporate policies, industry practices, and ultimately, the technology itself. The flight attendant approached with a glass of champagne. "Complimentary, Ms. Taylor. And may I say, my daughter has your poster on her wall. She wants to be an engineer because of you." Jasmine smiled, remembering how she had once been that girl with posters of women scientists on her bedroom wall in Harlem. The circle was complete. Landing in Washington, Jasmine was met by a government car. As they drove past the illuminated monuments, her phone chimed with a message from Dr. Washington. "CNN just announced you've been named to their 40 under 40 list. The first of many accolades to come." The next morning, as Jasmine prepared to address Congress, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The discrimination she had faced on that flight could have derailed her, could have become yet another barrier that prevented a brilliant mind from contributing to the world's advancement. Instead, it had become a catalyst for change, not just for her but for countless others who would now find doors open that had previously been closed. When she stepped up to the microphone, Jasmine saw not just the faces of the politicians before her, but the faces of every child who had been told, explicitly or implicitly, that they didn't belong in spaces of excellence. "My name is Jasmine Taylor," she began, "and I'm here to talk about the future. A future where innovation is limited only by our creativity, not by outdated notions of who belongs at the table." 1 year after being told she didn't belong on a plane, Jasmine Taylor had not only secured her seat, she was charting the course for an entire industry. And this was just the beginning. Jasmine's story teaches us that true change requires both individual courage and systemic accountability. When faced with discrimination, she refused to be silenced or settled for easy solutions that wouldn't create lasting impact. Her triumph wasn't just in her technological achievement but in transforming her painful experience into a catalyst for industry-wide change. We learn that excellence is the most powerful response to prejudice. By excelling in her field, Jasmine didn't just prove her critics wrong, she changed the very spaces that once tried to exclude her. Her story reminds us that assumptions based on appearance not only harm individuals but deprive society of brilliant contributions. The corporate response demonstrates that accountability isn't punishment, it's opportunity. The companies that embraced change didn't just avoid PR disasters, they became better, more innovative, and more profitable. This reveals an essential truth: diversity isn't charity, it's competitive advantage. Perhaps most importantly, Jasmine shows us that belonging isn't something to be granted by others, it's claimed through persistence, excellence, and an unwavering belief in one's own worth. When we stand firm in our value, we don't just change our own circumstances, we create pathways for others to follow. Have you ever had to stand up against prejudice or witnessed someone triumph over discrimination? Share your experience in the comments below. If Jasmine's journey resonated with you, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. Subscribe for more powerful narratives about overcoming adversity, and share this video with someone who needs inspiration to keep pushing forward despite unfair obstacles. Thank you for being part of this important conversation. Together, we can create a world where talent and character matter more than appearance or background.